Namaskar, Kiora. Friends, we have with us a very special person in our studios. His name is Shyam Parande, and he is Global Coordinator and Secretary of Seva International. बाकी बची हुई बातें हम श्याम जी से खुद पूछेंगे. Welcome to Indian News, Shyam ji. How are you today?
I'm doing well and glad that India News has asked me to talk to your audience, and Kia ora and namaste to everybody.
It's a pleasure, sir. Shyam ji, since this is first time you will be talking to our audience, would you want to tell us about yourself and the work you are doing, the good work you are doing?
Sure. I started my Seva, social work. It's 45 years now, and I'm continuously doing that. And it's 27 years of Seva International working across the world. We all started in 1997 with registration of the trust in India, Bharat, and have spread to 27 countries now. So that's how we are into Seva. But the main point here is every diaspora person wishes that he or she contributes to the development of India, supports non-governmental activity, registered activity which have locally necessary tax benefits and FCRA registrations and all that, as well as we encourage the diaspora to serve locally whichever country they are, because they are earning ultimately out of this country.
Yes.
So we owe, beyond paying taxes, we owe to serve locally also. So this is the twinfold. And third, of course, is popularization of the term Seva, which is in our tradition it's selfless service. So without any motivation of name, fame, money, or even the political interest, like in
or
India.
any recognition. Yeah.
So that's that kind of Seva we should offer.
Shyamji, I would want to go a little bit in the background as well, like how and when it all started. I understand you are a civil engineer by profession. So how come you entered this Seva thing?
Well, there was a devastating tidal wave in southern part of India, especially Krishna and Guntur districts of Andhra Pradesh, and I then left my job where I was serving near my own native Nagpur, and then joined the rehabilitation program which was about to start, and they needed an engineer's service. So I supervised reconstruction, rehabilitation of 4 villages and 500 houses almost. So that's where my career started, with Seva offering. And it was really a devastating area because then the tidal wave had killed at least 10,000 people.
Which year was that?
19th of November 1977.
77. Okay.
So 78th January I was there on spot.
Okay.
Doing a little of relief that was left, and then joining the rehabilitation program. That's where I started.
So is now the Seva International is your full-time job?
Yeah, it's my full-time job. I work for Diaspora and Seva International.
Wonderful. So Shyamji, is this your first visit to New Zealand?
Yeah, somehow I came to Australia earlier, but could not make it to New Zealand. And though a short trip, I'm glad that I'm here.
Wonderful. And may I ask you, what is the purpose of your visit this time?
The very purpose of my visit is connecting the people to Seva International, talking to them, establishing Seva International, getting this registered in course of time, so that we had some, during the Corona, our friends here did serve for Corona, and volunteers we gathered then, but there is no registered entity here. So we want globally, as in each and every country, it's Seva International, New Zealand also gets.
So it's kind of launching the Seva International in New Zealand. It's going to happen soon?
Yeah, that's what we are looking at.
Wonderful. That's great news for the diaspora community. Now, like typically of any of the foreign nation where the diaspora is settled, Indian diaspora, every country have their own issues.
Yeah.
New Zealand, despite of being a beautiful place, a small country, neat and clean, green, this country has its own issues as well. Have you come across in last 2 days anyone who has shared their experience, what they feel
Yeah,
about
there
this
are
country?
people, there are Indian community people who are already serving in the local communities.
Hmm.
They are serving like senior amongst the seniors from Indian community who need service. But beyond that, the local community is also like food, providing food, free food to the needy.
Yeah.
And then there are natives like Maori community which needs support. It's more of cultural connect with them.
Hmm.
And then the islanders community which is here, and
Yeah.
they need our support.
Shyamji, I'm going to ask you something which may not exactly be related to the work you do. But since I have been, for example, I have been in this country for 20 years,
Good.
and with my own experience, I can be very forthright in, about few issues. Fortunately, I'm part of the ethnic media as well now. There are some countries in the world which don't hold very good or positive views about India. There are some certain communities who don't hold good views about India or positive views about India. Even unfortunately, a certain section of Indian diaspora, especially the left-leaning diaspora, they don't hold good views about the India, present Indian government. Even despite of being Hindu, they hold some grudges against the Hindu community at large. How you think this issue should be addressed?
But the diversity, you say, we value diversity, and there will be people who will be contradicting us. But that doesn't mean that a community in general will not support us, despite all the propaganda against very Indian ethos or the Indian society or the diaspora itself.
Hmm.
If we continue to follow our own path for a longer time, people will understand us. Because, as I said, we are a successful community, there will be opposition. And as India rises, there might be more opposition. India itself.
This
And
is what is
it is
exactly happening.
exactly happening. You see, every Indian person who used to visit us, one of my seniors used to tell him or her or the family, that you do something whichever country you are, which makes us proud, and we'll do something that will empower you to look straight and walk with a head held high. So that's what the point is. As India rises, people will realize that this is the dharmic civilization, which is not out to conquer anybody, but establish human relations with human societies across the world. So that's how Indian diaspora had been earlier also, and that how historically, and that's happening now, and that's where I feel all this opposition might be left leaning or might be whatever for their grudges or opposition, that will all vanish in course of time. That's what I
So
feel.
you think it's a long-term endeavor?
Yeah,
It's
it's a
going to
long
take
term.
time.
Yeah, it is going to take time.
What is your
But
advice for those people who have to face it on a everyday basis?
we
What
need to
advice would you want to give
yeah,
them?
we need to sustain it, especially.
Hmm.
You see, Buddha, when asked that why do you get angry, he said anger is something like you are punishing yourself for others' faults. So we should never get into that, because we will be the loser if we get angry. We should keep our composition and let world understand us. It might take some time, but we are surely, because this is the dharma way, the righteous way that we are walking.
Very nicely said. Last thing, Shyamji, I won't take much of your time. What message you want to give to the diaspora community in general in New Zealand?
One is Seva, there is this diaspora, because I am also part of Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad, which has been working with diaspora for 50 years almost.
Okay.
And we also run a Diaspora Research and Resource Center under ARSP or ICIC, Indian Council for International Cooperation. And I feel Indian diaspora should spread across the world with a message of brotherhood. What the Prime Minister has last year during the G20 has said, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one world, one family, one future. It can be one future and one family, provided Indian diaspora works as India's soft power across the world, so that what our principles are dispersed or distributed or influenced by the or accepted by the local communities. That matters.
I just realized, sorry, it was going to be my last question. You were part of the G20 summit
Yeah,
as
I was
well?
part of the G20.
What was your role in that
Well,
summit?
there is one vertical called C20, Civil Society 20,
Okay,
and I was the international coordinator for that. So
wonderful.
we could get across all the communities and NGOs across the world participating into it.
So that was going parallel with the summit
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Through ARSP, ICIC, we conducted a program on Indian diaspora, which was called, the title or theme of the program was The Sun Never Sets on Indian Diaspora. So it was a 24 hours continuous program. It started with first participation from Fiji and the islands,
Yes.
and then moved towards California, country by country and region by region. Indian diaspora today is present in almost like 180 countries. The spread is so wide, and
Wonderful.
everywhere we feel they spread the message of brotherhood, and through like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in practice.
Shyamji, I understand, I've come to know that Seva International was involved in rescue of Indian students who were during the when this war with Russia and Ukraine started. So they got trapped in Ukraine, and Seva International helped to bring all those students out of. What was that whole story? Can you explain us or tell us about that incident?
Government of India through a External Affairs Ministry had sent a notice to the Indian students, which was like 32,000 students then studying in Ukraine. Most of the students did not pay heed to the notice. Only a part of that, less than one third of that moved out. And there were 22,000 students left over when the war started, and it was intense war. It was bombarding, it was firing all over going on. Getting students across to Bharat was a stupendous challenge.
Yes.
And our volunteers, where we started with 10-15 volunteers initially, at the end of say month and a half in Ukraine, we had a force of 150 volunteers at grassroots. So that force we could build. Indian community, the diaspora in Ukraine, as we issued an appeal, responded positively. Like restaurants, Indian restaurants were there, they opened free food. Hoteliers were there, they opened and they had free stay for a short while. And that's how we could save 5,000 plus students, Indian students. And while this was happening, more intense war was in Kharkiv. So we tried to reach that there, but it was not possible because of the continuous bombardment. And we had to appeal, the Prime Minister of India appealed, and we moved our volunteers to that part and got all 2,000 students who were stuck there out of that area. The students had to walk with their baggage for like 10 kilometers, 12 kilometers. And then there were buses or rail service.
So
we
were
moved
there
out
any other agencies or just the Seva International doing this job?
Very few agencies were in Ukraine.
Okay.
Across the border, where we met them cross the borders, there were refugees coming in, Indian students coming in. So we had established 4 camps in Poland, Hungary, Romania, and Moldova. And we made these students first cross the border and sent back, with of course in coordination with Indian embassies all over Ukraine as well as in that places. But while we were helping the Indian students, there was Nigerian ambassador in Kyiv, capital of Ukraine, who asked one of our activists, why don't you help us also, because there are African students also. So we helped 1,200 African students from 5 countries cross the border provided them, as well as 35,000 Ukrainians who were crossing the border. We helped them with whatever they need, because many of them did not have passports even, because their houses were destroyed. So getting their passports prepared, their visas, refugee visa status, and then as they cross,
So that must be a
refreshments,
Herculean task.
and first aid and everything, and with untrained force of
So how
volunteers.
long this whole
So this
operation
volunteer
went?
force worked for almost 4 months.
4 months.
4 months. There were people coming in, and now we are looking at serving the refugees in some places across Europe. So that's
Great.
how we continue with the
Wonderful
rehabilitation
job.
or
Yeah, well done.
rescuing.
Well done. Yeah, well
Thank
done,
you.
Seva International.
Thank you. Well, the volunteers from all over Europe were moved, and UK and Europe, and funds across the world to, especially Seva USA.
Great. So on this positive note, we come to end of our interview. Thank you so much for your time, Shyamji.
Right.
And
Right. Welcome and thank you.
yeah,
I could
welcome
talk
once again to the
India
Indian
News.
News. Namaskar.
Namaskar.